In this CAD for Newbies tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the sweep feature in Fusion 360 to create these dual color candy canes just in time for Christmas. Let's get started. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Makers Muse. So in this CAD for Newbies tutorial, we're going to talk about the sweep function within Fusion 360, but we're not just going to talk about it, we're going to do a project. Specifically, we're going to create this. This is a dual color 3D print printed on the Prusa i3 Mark II with the Multi Material Upgrade. So it's printed in two different types of PLA, and I'm going to walk you through how I drew it in Fusion 360 and how I printed it. The project file for this design in Fusion 360 is available for a fee if you want to click the link here to help you learn and work along with the tutorial, or it's also free to my Patreon supporters as a big thanks to supporting me on the channel. So here's my candy cane in Fusion 360, and you'll notice down the bottom left, it's extremely simple. And this is created using the sweep feature. So the sweep feature in Fusion 360 is extremely powerful. Previously, we talked about using revolves, taking a sketch and revolving it around an axis. Well, the sweep takes a sketch, and instead of revolving it, it actually sweeps it along a defined path. So a sweep has two components, the sketch or profile and your path. Two different sketches that are involved to create your sweep feature. So let's start a brand new sketch, new design. And as always, you want to create a new component just in case you're going to make a complex assembly of candy canes. It's not necessary, but it is good practice. So let's go to new component, assemble new component, and call it candy cane. So we're going to start with a sketch. As always, create sketch, and I'm going to select my top plane. So what you want to define for your candy cane is how long you want it. So for these ones, I went with about 150 millimeters in height or so, maybe 140. It does depend on your 3D printer. And we're going to draw it with L for line. Draw the line up. And escape. And then we're going to draw an arc. So go to sketch and arc. For this, tangent arc actually works quite good. It works by just clicking the point, holding down and dragging it out. And candy canes have that sort of a characteristic hook on them. So to do that, I'm just going to draw it a bit like this. That's fine. And then I'm going to hit L again here, and then just drag it out slightly to an angle. So you notice it wants to do a constraint for directly vertical. If you're not familiar with constraints, please do view my 3D CAD for Newbies constraint video before you watch this one. Otherwise, you might get a bit lost. What we just did there is we created a tangential arc from our line around here to our line here. And from here, it's just about tweaking it to make it kind of look like a candy cane, whatever you're comfortable with. And just for a little bit of a pro tip, if you're trying to define the entire height of the candy cane, it is actually quite easy to do, but we will need a construction line. So hit L for line, drag it across here, escape, and then I'm just going to turn it into a construction line by hitting X. So this dashed line here means it's not part of the final geometry, it's just used as a construction. We've talked about construction lines before in previous CAD for Newbies tutorials, where we use them for axes and various features to help geometry, but it's not involved directly in the geometry, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do with this line is use it to define our overall height of the candy cane by selecting it, then holding down Shift, selecting our arc, right click, and then we want tangent. So what this does is our construction line is locked to the horizontal, and it's also tangential to our arc. And you're probably already guessing how we're going to use this new construction line. Hit D for dimension, and then select the two, like that. So we've selected our construction line and the point at the bottom of our candy cane, and now we can define the entire height of a candy cane. So I can make this 140, like so, and it updates. Excellent. And now I'm just going to sort of drag this arc around to kind of get a good idea of where I want it. That makes sense with looking at the candy cane. It needs to be quite a bit bigger. You can actually define the angle. I might do that here of our little hook. I'm going to click the two lines there. And let's just go with like 5. Yeah, it's exploded down there. So that's our dimension for the angle of our little hook there. And there's D for dimension again. Let's make our radius 30. And don't forget, guys, we're drawing with a feature tree, so you can always go back to this sketch and change dimensions. Don't worry, you can update your project as you go along, so don't stress too much about getting this exactly right the first time. But I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to hit stop sketch, and that's the path for our candy cane. You can start drawing the profile first or the path first, it doesn't matter, but remember every sweep needs a profile and a path. So let's draw the profile next. So I'm going to go to sketch, and the features of a sweep are important. You need to have it trace a path. So deciding where you draw it on the path is very important. You can't draw a profile on the same plane as the path. You need to draw it kind of like here, like, you know, perpendicular to it, because it's going to sweep through it. So I'm going to hit the front plane here. So I'm going to go to C for circle and make sure I'm selecting the right point here. And I'm basically just drawing a circle. So of course you're going to want to define the diameter of your candy cane stalk. So the diameter of that circle. So I don't quite remember what I used. I think it was 10 millimeters. So hit D for dimension and 10, just like that. And again, profiles can be very complicated if you like, just like we talked about with revolves, but it's important that they don't intersect each other. So I'm going to hit stop sketch here. Okay, so we've got our profile, which is our circle here, and we have our path, which is our line work here. So we're going to go to create, sweep. So the sweep window gives you various options. We have different types, single path or path and a guide rail, profile and path. I'm not going to talk about guide rails too much in this. It sort of helps you control how the profile sweeps through. It's more of an advanced thing that's worthwhile talking about in a future video. We're just talking about basic sweeps in this one. So for my profile, I have my circle obviously, and for my path, I have my candy cane. And there we go. So what this has done is taken our circle and pushed it through the candy cane like that, all the way to the end. Now you can define how far along a path goes. In Fusion 360, it will let you say how far the distance is, but I want it to go all the way to the end like that. So distance 1, I assume that means 100%, so it goes all the way to the end. Then we can actually do a few different things to it to modify. Fusion 360 has been very, very good at updating the control we have over sweeps. So we have taper. For example, with our taper angle, we could change it to make it go fatter, so 0.5 for example. So it gets slightly fatter towards the end, or like minus 0.5, it gets thinner, like that. If you wanted to do something like that, it might be good for a tentacle or something along those lines. But I don't want a taper angle here, so 0. Then you have twist angle. Now we're going to use twist angle for our second feature to give our candy canes these lovely twists. But for our first sweep, we don't want to worry about that. Then you have orientation. Now this is important. Do you want your profile to follow the path, perpendicular, or do you want it to remain parallel to its original point? Now here we can say parallel, and it's not going to work. But a parallel is exactly what it says. It stays parallel to its original sketch. So it would sort of, maybe you can make it work up to this point. Yeah, here we go. So here you can see with parallel, it's sort of crushing out because the circle is not following perpendicular to the line. Whereas if we make it perpendicular, it will stay and trace around our sweep like that, which is exactly what we want for a candy cane. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to say okay. And that is our sweep. So it's taken 2 sketches and 1 feature to create the outline of our candy cane, just like that. But now we're going to do a bit of a power move. How did I make it look like this with a twist using a dual extrusion 3D printer? Well, I used something called the patch workspace. So the best way to explain patches are 3D surfaces that don't have any thickness. They're 0 thickness. So if you imagine this candy cane was completely hollow, this was just a surface on the outside, and you could just, it was like a tube, that would be made up of patches with no thickness. So you obviously can't recreate patches in the real world unless they become a solid volume, but they're extremely powerful for modeling. You can create very complicated objects using the patch workspace. So we're going to change over to that. Let's go to model and patch. And we're going to use the patch workspace to do another sweep, but this time we're going to sweep a single line. Yes, watch. So what we're going to do is create sketch, go back to our first front plane, or just select the end of the candy cane. I'm going to hit L for line and just draw a line like that. Just make sure it stays midpoint. So I just selected both and right click midpoint constraint. So it's just going to stay locked to our shape. I don't care if it extends out a little bit, that's actually fine. Stop sketch. And we're going to use this line to sweep along our candy cane. So create and sweep. And because we've already created a path to create the candy cane in the first place, we can reuse that path for our patch sweep. So profile is just a line, and path is going to be, if I turn on our sketches, there we go, our path. Now this is important to note the differences. In the patch workspace, you can sweep just lines into these patches, these zero thickness surfaces. In the normal modeling workspace, you cannot. A profile has to be enclosed, fully enclosed, like a circle, square, whatever random shape. It has to be completely enclosed. Whereas in the patch workspace, it doesn't. We've just swept a line around our candy cane just like that, all the way to the end. But now we can use the other modifier we didn't touch before. We can use twist angle. Twist angle. Let's change this to 15. Okay, that's twisting a little bit. What about 360? That's twisting around once. What about 520? It's twisting around a lot now. And you can see how I use those twists to get that shape. So you can go back and change this, but I'm going to go with 720. Like that. I'm going to try 720 and see how it looks. And it is a new body. So what we have now is our candy cane here and our patch sweep, which is twisted here. Now patches are very, very powerful, and how I use them a lot is to split bodies. And we're going to use our twisted swept patch to split our original candy cane into two separate objects. So to do that, I'm going to go back to model and modify, and if we go down, you can see split body here. So body to split is our candy cane there, and splitting tool is our patch. Okay, and we hide our patch, and we've now got our candy cane split into two bodies, just like that. Okay, so what we have is our two bodies here, but to help you define them and visualize them a little bit easier, we're going to give them some appearances. So we're going to give them some colors. So I'm just going to right click here, just not on the part, just next to it, and select appearance. And then this window pops up, push it over here. So Fusion 360 has like downloadable materials. I'm just going to turn that off for now because I don't really want to download anything fancy. I just want to go to some colors. So I'm just going to go to plastic and opaque. And I'm going to drag over a red to one of them. Doesn't matter which one. Let's go with that one. And a white to this one. Just like that. So I have it applying to bodies, not faces. You can do it to faces, individual parts of a component, but I'm just doing it to a body. Just like that. Close. And that's our candy cane. Just like that. So let's say you wanted to give it more twists. You can go down the bottom left, right click our sweep, edit feature, and let's give it even more. Let's give it like 900. Like that. Even more twists. I mean, you could go absolutely crazy and do like 1,500 maybe. Like heaps. So you can really define how you want your candy cane to look. Now some of you might be wondering from a printability standpoint, how do you print this? I mean, it's rounded on the bottom. There's no way for it to stick to the build platform without a raft or supports. Well, what I did with mine is I gave it a little flat spot just to help it stick down. And all you need to do to make this happen is edit your original profile. So all we're going to do is right click our original profile, edit sketch. I've got it here. I'm just going to draw a line across like that and define just how far I want it from the bottom. You know, something like that. So maybe make it 5.5 in length. You know, just that's totally fine. And again, Fusion 360 is smart enough to know you can define separate boundaries and separate profiles. So it's just split it in two. Stop sketch. And I'm going to right click my original sweep. And it's automatically added two profiles, but I'm just going to unselect the bottom one. Simple as that. So now we're just sweeping a profile with the flat around instead of the complete circle. Okay. Everything nicely updates. There's no errors. And now we have a flat bottom for our candy cane to help it stick down to the build platform. But before we send this to the 3D printer, let's quickly talk about where sweeps can fail. So let's say, for example, you wanted a massive spike out of the side of our profile. So I could just draw the line this huge spike like this. And I wanted that to be part of the sweep. Now you can do that. You can do any profile you like in a sweep, but it can't intersect with itself. There's a certain minimum radius that a sweep can go around. So if I hit stop sketch, and I go to my sweep, edit feature, and I select this line, it fails. And it's failing because it cannot sweep it all around. Actually, the error says, this sweep could not create a valid body. Try changing the profile or path or adjusting the operation values. So there will be a certain size I can adjust this spike to make it work. Edit sketch. Let's make it, maybe that size. Stop sketch. Then I'll try adding it now. Edit feature. There we go. So that worked, but any larger, it starts to intersect with itself, and if it intersects, because of this this radius here at the top, it's going to fail. So keep that in mind when you're making sweeps. If a sweep fails, it's almost always likely the chance that it's actually intersecting with itself. Similarly, you can actually go too crazy with twist angles. Like if I try to do this massively twisted, oh, it actually works. That looks absolutely nuts. But you can go too far with twist angles where it will again intersect itself. Similarly, see it's going around here, and if it had a huge spike out on the outside of a radius going round and it started going into the radius, it might fail there as well. That looks like a crazy corkscrew. Anyway, cancel. I don't want that. So that's how sweeps can fail. If you have a sweep that's failing, that's why it's happening. Or you've drawn the profile actually inside, like instead of being on the line here, it's inside, or it's intersecting in some form. So the easiest way to do it is to be touching the path. It doesn't have to touch the path, but that is the easiest way to draw a sweep. So I'm going to save this off as STL. So simply select the body you want, right click, save as STL, and I'm going to save this off as a white candy cane part and a red candy cane part, and then I'm going to chuck it into Prusa Control to print it on the Multi Material Upgrade Prusa i3 Mark 2S. That's the one. Let's get going. Okay, we're in Prusa Control, which is fantastic for multi-material printing on the Prusa i3 Mark 2S Multi Material Upgrade. I'm going to make sure I have settings selected for the correct machine, which is the multi-material. And I think it's a 0.4 nozzle, not 0.6. Okay. File, import multi-print, multi-part print. So here is my candy cane multi-part print in Prusa Control. So it automatically nests them together properly because they are exported with the same origin, so it knows exactly where to put them. And we're going to print these multi-colors. So you can define the extruder that you want. So extruder 1, and then extruder 2 is what's defined, but I want to change one of them to extruder 4. So I'm just going to select down here, extruder to extruder 4, like that. That looks good to me. So I have on my machine loaded up a white and a red on the 1 and 4, so that's why I've defined that. That's usually the hardest part of getting the right extruders. And then you have your purge block. Now the purge block's over here by default, but I just move it a bit closer. For this, it seems to work fine. 0.2mm layer heights is fine, and no support. And we're going to generate our G-code. So it's saying 2 hours and 14 minutes with 5.4 meters of filament. And you can see here, we've got our multi-material printing with a purge block. And we're going to send that to the Prusa. So the Prusa multi-material upgrade for me has been pretty much flawless. I did have one semi-jam, but that did clear pretty easily early on. It does take up a lot of space. You have 4 spools, and the spool holders aren't that great. I'll be completely honest, that the rolling resistance is quite high. But I have to admit, I had a lot of pessimism on multi-material, multi-color printing because it was such a pain to set up with dual nozzles and lining them up. And the purge block in this system is a waste of filament. I mean, you get a purge block like this for a design like this, and it's solid plastic. But the final result is awesome. I'm so happy with how well and clean the lines are with this design, especially considering I wasn't sure how fine each little part would be, each layer, because it twists around. There's little islands of color as it goes around. So I'm not sure which one I like more. Like, this is the one that the colors that came with the Prusa, which is gold and a sort of a orangey red, which is filamentum and Prusa's own filament. But this is the polyalchemy one, which is like a shiny white with a shiny crimson. Not sure which ones. They're both very Christmassy though. Not sure which one I prefer. But there you have it, guys. That's how to create a dual color candy cane, using Fusion 360 and sweeps. And I hope you found this video useful on how to use sweeps within Fusion 360. They're a very powerful tool for creating objects like pipes or tentacles or candy canes. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope you found it useful, guys, and if you did, please do consider subscribing to Makers Muse. It helps me out a huge amount. I love bringing you content like this here on YouTube for free, and a big thanks to my Patreon supporters who help make this all possible. So till next time, I look forward to seeing you again very shortly here on Makers Muse. Catch you later, guys. Bye.
Here's the latter half of the 20th century, and man has sent rockets into deep space. He has placed satellites into orbit. And he has actually